The shenanigans will start no later than when I appear on the screen. And I say unto you that I had walked that road, and I had looked forward with my own eyes, and I had seen the devil. Copyright Black Cat Badger 2025. Okay, so this one's another request from Commander Wolf on the Discord. Please make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe before I do anything else. Also, yeah, in the Discord, you could throw your requests at me. Don't know what that is still. Kind of scared to look at it. That was fun. So was this one. So was that one. But that being said, well, okay, that other one wasn't as fun. Actually, this kind of almost, broke me a little bit. Rest in peace, good man. That being said, yeah. And then you could get into the memes for the Mandem. Samurai, Star Trek, Old War, and Star Wars. Awesome. All the good things come together. And this is where you get notified and can talk to other people in the channels. So, yeah, Discord link in the description box down below. Now let's go. So, from Commander Wolf on the Discord. Wait, was it Commander Wolf? I better double check. I don't want to give the wrong thing to the wrong peoples. Oh, wait, no, this is from Stuka 529. Apologies, Stuka. I'm so used to Commander Wolf doing all the requests, for the most part, that I totally forgot other people have joined since my absence. Apologies in advance. But Stuka, this one's for you from the Discord. Again, link in the description box down below. All right, let's jump into it. SCP-4431, Bleeding Beneath Antarctica, Euclid Extraterrestrial SCP. Aren't technically all of them extraterrestrial because they're not directly from Earth itself? I mean, I could be wrong. From the Volgan. Let's go. I'm pretty sure I'll like it. So let's go. Wait, how? Ow. Fuck. How long is this? 46 minutes? Okay, I'm sure I can. Okay, yeah, I can do that. Ooh, scary. Creepy.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Miller, and the SCP we're going to be looking at today is SCP-4431. Containment Class Euclid. Disruption Class VLAM. And Risk Class Warning. Special Containment Procedures. Research Station 5 has been built directly above SCP-4431-A. Size.
Wait a minute. What did he say? There's disruption classes now?
Is SCP-4431. Containment Class Euclid. Disruption Class VLAM.
Disruption class Vlam? What on earth is that shit? I gotta look this up. Disruption class Vlam? What is this? VLAM is the second tier of disruption classes used by the SCP Foundation to classify SCPs based on their potential to disrupt the general population and break the masquerade of normalcy. VLAM Clam is VLAM. VLAM Clam. What on earth? I don't even know where that comes from. VLAM class SCPs have a reasonable potential to cause disruption, affecting multiple people but localized to a small handful of individuals. The anomalous effects of such SCPs do not extend very far, and the Foundation typically finds it relatively simple to neutralize their effects after an incident. Due to the limited scale of their impact, VLAM class SCPs are usually assigned between level 1 and 3 clearance and are commonly contained as safe or Euclid class objects. The name VLAM is derived from the Dutch word for flame. I thought it sounded familiar. I've trained alongside Dutch military, and whenever they would say something akin to something being lit on fire or fire being involved, that's what I think the word they were saying was. For flame, symbolizing a small localized source, or it could be wrong. Then again, them and the Vikings are the hardest ones to understand when you're mid training, unless they know a lot of English. Well, anyway, symbolizing a small localized source of light, such as a candle flame. This classification is part of a 5-tier system that includes dark, minimal disruption, Kenic, citywide influence, Iki, national or larger scale, and Amida, global or universal disruption. Okay, well, now I know. They've been updating stuff since I've been doing stuff. Jesus, I'm old.
And risk class warning. Special containment procedures. Research Station 5 has been built directly above SCP-4431-A. Seismometers across Antarctica will monitor activity from SCP-4431-A and report any irregularities in the anomaly's behavior. At least one boring probe and an ice sheet drilling mechanism are to be kept at the station in the event that investigation of SCP-4431-A is necessary. Contact is to be maintained with all Foundation and non-Foundation research stations in Antarctica for reports of SCP-4431-B manifestations. If a manifestation is reported, personnel at the station are advised to monitor the manifestation and resultant SCP-4431-C instances.
I'm putting an SCP in my mouth right now. Supposedly. They're supposed to be doing something. I don't feel shit yet. So much for the SCP of mushrooms.
Objects left by expired instances are to be transported to the nearest Foundation facility. Mobile Task Force Psi-1, dispatched from Miskatonic, will be deployed for containment if necessary. Non-Foundation personnel that witness these anomalies will be administered appropriate amnestics on leaving Antarctica. Cover stories regarding the Dayton-Bannard Antarctic expedition.
Miskatonic, what is that? Not to mention, what I heard before when they were speaking of, having basically pre-prepped, um, allocation of resources and delegation of duties and such, for such a thing. Like, I like how they put this together, right? So, some of y'all who may or may not know, I'm retired military, and I've been to every continent. Yes, those two as well. I may or may not have been there, actually. Don't know if that's actually something widely known yet. Um, Wait. Does the treaty? Well, the treaties are applicable still, but people still do shit there. Well, anyway, that's beside the point. But anyway, I'm retired military. I've worked with, trained, and fought alongside pretty much almost everybody at some point in time, in some place, at some why and how. So yeah, I'm very familiar with having to be prepared for the preparation of the thing where you have the redundancy for the thing to do the thing in case the thing has to become a thing. Simplifying that all the way down to ground zero. But it makes sense to me the way they put this together, where it's like, okay, there's a thing that's weird here. We deal in weird. That's our main mission set, primary focus. So, our medal, which is our mission essential task list, is this for this thing, and this is our response to it. Boom. Chakalaka. This makes sense to me. I like how it tickles that part of my brain. Because it's like, oh, this is something kind of familiar, but it's a fiction, right? I mean, is it technically science fiction or cosmic horror? I'm not really too terribly sure which, but it falls into both categories, I guess. But I like how they say, uh, um, research station's been built directly above it. Seismometers are basically, um, it's a measuring tool, right? A seismometer that measures seismic activity. A lot of people don't know that. Reading that, they'd be like, what? Seismo? Huh? Not a lot of people think of seismic activity and seismometers. They think of something else for some reason. Because a lot of people aren't deep into shit, which is understandable. People are just trying to live. But that being said, I've used seismometers myself, and some of them are very complicated. Some of them are pretty simple and basic. Like there's a seismometer, you can just it has like a 6-inch stake on it. And the reason we were using it, right, is because we were doing demolition training, And part of that demolition training was to see how far away, right, you could detect explosives of certain, like let's say you're using like a 5 pound bomb versus a 10 versus 15, 25, up to 100 pounds, even 1,000, right? And you stick that sucker into the ground, right? Make sure it's nice, even, and level a certain distance away, and see what it picks up, essentially. That was one of the many things we've done, which, at the time, my understanding of it was is that they were doing that because they did updates to the kind of demo we were using. And then, part of training was to like learn how to, okay, this is how you can, tell this is this far with, doing this to that or whatever. And I remember maybe half of it. Most of what I remember was big thing go boom and make bigger boom now. So boom away. But that being said, I love how they put this all together, right? Report any irregularities and its behavior. Basically, they're doing like a long term reconnaissance. Well, surveillance, reconnaissance, kind of the same thing. So it makes sense to me. I love that part. And a boring probe and an ice sheet drilling mechanism are to be kept at the station in the event. So they've got TPE, which is theater provided equipment. So in the military, if we're going to be going to a friendly country, more often than not, we're going to have TPE there, right? So there's a lot of places in Europe that still exist, even after the Cold War, where there is theater provided equipment. So basically, the soldiers aren't there to use it, but it's there in the event that you need more soldiers there. Then they can just be shipped overseas, and there are some scenarios for airborne troops to drop in on a TPE site, essentially, a holding area where all this equipment will be, and they could drop in on that, start getting it all ready, and rouse it all up and get it and prepare it for action. And then you've got like a bunch of mechanized brigades in the matter of maybe a couple days. Um, But yeah, or you could just, ship a bunch of extra personnel overseas, assign them to this theater provided equipment that's prepped and ready there for you to pick up and go. That way, I mean, yeah, there's still the other end of those logistics where it's like you're gonna bring what you trained with, but you're also gonna have TPE. That also happens as well. So guys will still ship overseas with a lot of their own stuff. Um, and then their vehicles and stuff will be shipped over too. But then there would be also others who would fall in still on TPE as well. I've done both, and I've done either or my entire military career. It was pretty cool to be able to land somewhere, not have your stuff that you need, and it's already there waiting for you to pick it up and go and just go do stuff. It was always pretty cool to be able to do that. But yeah, I like this. I really love the amount of just it seems like they're not exactly copying, but it seems like almost a copy of what I used to do, which is part of the reason why I love these things so much, right? Because it's like it tickles my brain a little bit in the way I like it to.
31C instances. Objects left by expired instances are to be transported to the nearest Foundation facility. Mobile Task Force Psi-1, dispatched from Miskatonic, will be deployed for containment if necessary. Non-Foundation personnel that witness these anomalies will be administered appropriate amnestics on leaving Antarctica. Cover stories regarding the Dayton-Bannard Antarctic expedition have been disseminated. Report
So it sounds like they've also, I mean, they've got their hazardous material response stuff down, it seems like, too. I love this kind of thing. I like this. But so, in the military, if there's any kind of so hazmat is hazardous materials. That could be anything from ammunition, to vehicle and engine lubricants and industrial, sauce of any kind, to full on nuclear weaponry and radioactive elements used in certain types of equipment, weapons, and, all that stuff, and vehicles. Or if you're dealing with a vehicle that has like a laser, like a heavy type laser, either test bed or an applied like a denial system or an aerial denial system or something like that, then they're usually considered hazmat as well, and they're placarded when you're traveling. But but yeah, this sounds like that essentially. It's like, okay, there's this stuff there. It's weird. We deal in weird. This is our response to it. Our response basically sounds like almost a standard hazmat procedure, like a standard operating procedure for hazmat in the event of, right. And I love that. I really do. These are so well put together. I couldn't do a better job.
The expedition ship as having vanished en route to the Filcher ice shelf, as surviving personal accounts from Banner describe a wide variety and number of anomalous phenomena beyond SCP-4431. All information on the expedition has been acquired by the Foundation. Potential links between the events of the expedition and SCP-4431-A's current activity are of high concern. Description: SCP-4431 designates two subterranean artificial structures, SCP-4431-A and B, and a collection of psionic organisms designated SCP-4431-C, present in East Antarctica. SCP-4431-A is a machine located 3,400 meters below the Antarctic Plateau, buried in...
Wait a minute. Description: SCP-4431 designates two subterranean artificial structures, 4431-A and 4431-B, and a collection of psionic organisms, 4431-C, present in East Antarctica. Oh, shit. East Antarctica. Oh, that's closer to like where. That's closer, if I remember correctly, that's closer to where like the Russians were doing some shit. I think so, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Because we had stuff that was more central and western parts of Antarctica. They had stuff that was more eastern, which, I mean, wait, or am I misremembering that? I need to double check that shit. Google Earth. Google. I'm not doing any projects. I just want to, yeah. Okay. Yeah, if I remember correctly, we had stuff that was more. Yeah, we had stuff that was more like central or western. And they had stuff that was more eastern than ours. If I'm remembering this correctly. I'm pretty sure I'm right on this. Anyway. But yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, yeah. That lines up. God, I love those little details. They're pretty great.
in the bedrock under the East Antarctic ice sheet. The
Psionic organisms, though, psionic. Isn't that like. Okay. Psionic powers. Aren't they like the powers of the brain? Psionics? Okay, yeah. So basically, it's psychic, psionic, whatever. Okay, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Okay.
The object's depth renders it undetectable by ice penetration.
Ooh, imagine if people were going missing in Antarctica and they linked it to that. It'd be like, oh shit. People are swimming up to this thing. They're like, what is that? Kind of like what happened in I forgot if it was somewhere in it was in Mexico, I believe. Maybe. I'm pretty sure it might have been Mexico. There's a treasure trove in Mexico. Um I'm pretty sure it's Mexico, where you have to dive under to get to it. The logistics of trying to get anything out the top of this giant, probably man-made cavern. Um, Everything breaks trying to go in there. People swimming in there have tried, with perfectly functioning good equipment, have drowned. And then the people that did make it in there, um, when they broke the surface of the water, they were greeted by something that was, supposedly some kind of spirit of the past or something, right? Although those people are real people, so I mean, if they're lying, it's a pretty good lie. And they said they saw something like that, and they came to them when they broke out of the water, um, and they were like, it's not time yet, and you're not robbing this shit, so leave." And they were like, "Oh my god, what is this?" But yeah, nobody's, as far as I'm aware, nobody's been able to get in there. As far as I'm aware, I could be corrected in the comments.
Trading radar, preventing full.
But yeah, that's what that reminds me of, right? Because it's like people are going places and doing things, and then there's this spot where there's like all this extra, natural crap going on, and they're all getting affected by it in one way or another. Instruments stop working. Sounds kind of like a Skinwalker Ranch, which I would love to go to someday. I'd love to go there and just walk around with cameras strapped to my body and just chase down these things that appear out of nowhere. And maybe I'll get to fight that fucking Fenris wolf thingy that, wouldn't die after being shot a million times. Yeah, let's do it. If I make enough on this channel, I might. No, no. Knowing me, I would. I'd be like, yeah, let's go. Anyway, um, but yeah, that's what it kind of reminds me of. They're saying there's like psionic organisms present. Huh. Interesante.
Analysis of its appearance and size. Current size estimates include a minimum width of 20 kilometers. As drilling investigations to examine the structure invariably end in failure, refer to Discovery, no further information on SCP-4431-A is known. SCP-4431-B is a cylindrical tunnel constructed from a rhodium-platinum alloy, with a 11-meter interior radius. The tunnel extends for 39 meters before reaching a sharp vertical drop, which descends for a distance estimated to be a minimum of 3,000 meters. SCP-4431-B will manifest in a region of the Antarctic Plateau on a bi-monthly basis, rising out of the terrain until a majority of its entrance is exposed. A variable number of SCP-4431-C instances will then exit, often between 1 or 7. After a period of time ranging from 8 hours to 3 days, SCP-4431-B demanifests, retracting into the ground. Connection with tracking devices placed on the structure during demanifestation are all lost after 2 hours, preventing observation of SCP-4431-B's relocation. The body structure of SCP-4431-C instances can vary, though consistent details have been determined. These details are as follows.
Okay. So this SCP thing, it sounds like a mixture between some kind of like big worm, in the movies, a bunch of different movies, there's like the sandworm and the dirt worm and the water worm and worm everywhere. Well, what it reminds me of is like those worms coming out of the ground. You know, they got a mouth and they're like, "Blah," right? And then it just like spouts things out of it. That's the kind of visual I'm getting here. That is just a bit. That's a bit interesting because that's what it sounds like.
1 meter tall, upright conical bodies, with the main body and each limb segmented in a manner similar to arthropods. The main body is divided into 3 sections. 4 or more legs attached to the base of the body. Variable numbers of 3-meter long tendrils on the body's midsection, each ending in a claw. A toroidal mass covered in small, unknown biological structures fixed around the top of the body, presumed to be a form of sensory organ. A set of mandibles on the bottom of the cone. Anatomical deviations tend to include features that aid in withstanding Antarctic conditions or other purposes. Tumorous growths acting as heat radiators have been observed, along with cybernetic flamethrower implants. Many instances possess conical protrusions on their body, which open to dispense environmental monitoring devices. Rarely, instances are found with the tops of their bodies replaced by antennas and clusters of spherical machinery that serve similar purposes.
Oh, so it might be some kind of biomechanical drone, like artificially um, grown meat suits for mechanical frames or something. Ugh. Sounds kind of almost Borg-like in a way.
Following SCP-4431-B manifestation, SCP-4431-C instances will attempt to construct makeshift structures from any surrounding materials, presumably intended to be shelters. Instances typically expire in a few hours from environmental factors, though ones brought into containment have an average lifespan of 11 hours. Primary cause of death is the gradual degradation of internal organs. Following this, all organic matter on the instance dissolves into a bright pink fluid, hereafter referred to as hemorosin.
Huh, so it has a kill switch. So it can't be studied very well. Good God. And the fact that stuff like this is actually there's real potential for this in reality. Like there are ways to make it to where cells break down. There are ways to make it to where you can affect a body in such a way where you can break apart the bonds holding the cells together and people might just melt. It's ugh. It's terrifying stuff. That or oof, there's so many potential possibilities for it. Well, anyway, but yeah, that's dude. They're given a limited lifespan, right? Because they probably got severed from their connection, meaning there's an internal kill switch probably, and it like just dissolves them. Oh, imagine that. Imagine you're born, right? You've got your consciousness and everything, your cognizance. You're at least a quarter realized, creature. Most humans function at that level, by the way. Most humans are more instinctual animal than they are a humane human who has conscious, higher levels of thought beyond just, eat, sleep, food, hygiene, which a lot of people don't even practice that, which is, um, but yeah, your average person is operating more as an animal than they are a human. Because a human, you use your consciousness, you use your cognizance, right? You have a comprehension of that cognition, and you're able to think a few steps above your place in the world. The vast majority are unable to do that. But imagine you're one of the anybody really that's a human being. You're born, you grow really fast, you're able to do all these things. You go out to do whatever it is that the set parameters are of your existence are, and you only get 11 hours. And then once you're cut off from whatever, strings keep you animate, you just melt and dissolve. Just blah, 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 blah. I hope those things are not I hope those things do not have much of a consciousness at all. Hopefully they're just biomechanical droids or drones, whatever. And they're like a rock or a plant. Well, I don't know. Plants they're not happy when we eat them either. So I don't know. Can that thing be eaten? Maybe. Who knows? I don't know. You tell me. But that's just I don't know. A lot about this is pretty freaky, and I like it.
Instances possess psionic abilities used for the manipulation of objects, surroundings, and entities. Limited telepathic communication has been displayed on occasion. Information on the suspected origins of SCP-4431 is restricted. Addendum 4431-1 Discovery. The first reports of SCP-4431 are from 1919, when an Antarctic expedition led by former British naval officer Dayton Bannard repeatedly encountered SCP-4431-B and C instances.
That's a reference to an actual expedition that happened too, which is really cool. I love how much attention to detail they put into this. Like I said, I could literally not do anything better. Like this goes deep. The lore is literally past the Marianas Trench.
Refer to Addendum 4431-1. Accounts of SCP-4431-B manifestations continued after the first Antarctic research stations were established, leading to SCP-4431-B and C being classified as anomalies in the year 2000. SCP-4431-A came to the attention of the Foundation in March of 2019, when Foundation personnel operating at Research Outpost 2 in the Antarctic Plateau detected abnormal seismic activity originating from an underground location. Based on Foundation simulations of Earth's tectonic plate movement, it was determined that this could be the possible location of a ring-shaped lake depicted on SCP-2651-A. Presuming it was not destroyed by geologic activity and prehistoric K-class events after approximately 700 million years. Plans for excavation were proposed when the source of the activity triangulated to a region 10 kilometers in radius.
I'm assuming they're referring to, as far as I'm aware, there's a potential other lake, which I don't remember if they ever confirmed that or not. But there's another lake in Antarctica that's kind of ring-shaped, which, I mean, it's really cool they added that in here. And that would be interesting because there were some expeditions that were sent to try and do stuff there, and all of the reports and accounts of everything around it are just weird. So for all we know, something not too dissimilar from this could be happening there. We just don't know.
In June of 2019, a specialized boring probe was sent through the ice sheet and drilled into the bedrock, attaining a depth of 3,400 meters before entering a cavern with an oxygen-rich atmosphere and contacting a metal surface. Images from the probe show the surface to be covered in an array of mechanical appendages that were in the process of excavating the cavern ceiling. All readings from the probe were lost an hour after contact. Retrieval attempts failed due to the sudden collapse of the sub-bedrock section of the borehole and the formation of the frozen hemerosin within the main drilling mechanism. All subsequent drilling investigations have experienced similar outcomes.
Sounds like when the Russians were boring a hole to hell. Kinda, sorta.
SCP-4431-A was registered as an anomaly in August of 2019. Of note is that since the first drilling investigation, the number of recorded SCP-4431-B manifestations has increased.
Wait. It was registered 2019. I've noticed that since the first drilling investigation, the number of recorded manifestations has increased. Oh, they poked the hive. They poked the hive, and now they got to call in the Helldivers to deal with it. Well, actually, they're called MTFs for the SCP Foundation, but whatever.
4431-2. Dayton Bannard Journal Excerpts. The following are relevant excerpts from the personal journal of Dayton Bannard, written during his expedition to reach the South Pole. Bannard failed to keep dates for a majority of entries, and the excerpts are suspected to have been written during spring of early 1919. Recovered photographs are included. Bannard, 4431, Excerpts 1.
Searching for Giles was a fruitless endeavor. The snow had been piling up for hours, ruining any footprints, and not a soul could be seen on the horizon in such heavy blue twilight. I shouted for him in vain attempts before I gave up and went back to base. By the time I returned, the snow had piled up high enough by our ramshackle hut, and I had to dig my way in. I shut the door behind me and there was silence. No sounds from my crew members, nor the gusts outside, only the creaks of wood as I moved. Then I heard it, a constant clicking that started up, stopped, and kept repeating. I crept towards the main room's entrance, peeking around the corner and suddenly freezing in place. A hole was in one of the walls, fully plugged up with snow, and standing in the center was a beast I can barely begin to describe. Its body was a cone, resting on 4 spider-like legs, whip-like limbs swirling around it, a ring-shaped thing resting on top. I nearly screamed then and there. My heart was racing as its body swayed and stumbled towards me. I felt a splitting headache, and then a voice rang out in my head. This voice, so much unlike a voice, I may as well not describe it as such, said a single word. Home. The beast's body then softened like a cracker being dipped in water, collapsing apart into a foul-smelling pink fluid. There was a sudden tremor, and then the walls around buckled. I rested in that snow for what felt like an eternity, praying to God.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody had encountered something like that, I don't presume they would have any other reaction. Although it's fight, flight, or freeze, really. Some people freeze. Some decide to just jump in on whatever it is, get it over with, right? And then, others choose to run. So he obviously was the freeze type. But yeah, I mean, I've seen some pretty freaky stuff during my time, especially in Afghanistan, and it was weird. Really weird. And then some other stuff in other countries, but that's neither here nor there. Everybody's heard the stories. Mine wouldn't be nothing special. You probably heard it from other people. But yeah, just imagine that. Just coming across something so absolutely bizarre. And then it just, it's like, like towards you, like in the old movies. And you're like, oh! And then it just, puddle. I wouldn't know what to think myself. If I didn't know anything about any of this stuff, I wouldn't expect it either. Although I do have a measure, when it comes to like science, theoretical science especially. And the fact stuff is the fact there's so much more possible than people actually believe, or that they know, quite freakish in many ways. Knowing anything about, figuring out anything and reaching some kind of comprehension of like physics, biological sciences, shoot, even stuff like geology and the earth sciences and psychology. You have any kind of comprehension in all of those. And it is a wonder that humanity isn't as absolutely uh, uh, destroyed comparative to all the potential for it to be. And I don't say the world or Earth being destroyed because, well, we aren't the world and we're not the planet we live on, and it doesn't care if we're here or not. We're just something in resonancy on it out of the untold billions of years it's been around. It doesn't care.
Once the crew pulled me to my feet, they told me that the beast had barged in through the wall while I was out, prompting everyone to hide where they could. Nobody saw what it did before I returned. Once we started eating, Sai started to panic. He kept asking over and over again if the beast was some type of demon, wondering if he heard the voice of the devil himself. I suspect he heard the same voice I did. I wish I had an answer. When we had fully awoken, Richard proposed we go out and find where the beast had come from. We were all apprehensive at first, Sai being the most nervous among us, but after a long discussion we realized we had little else to do until Lewin's crew returns with supplies. When the snow finally stopped piling up, we went out to survey the area for any abnormalities. The first several hours met with no discoveries, until I heard Abner hollering by a cave entrance. Nothing peculiar struck me when I first entered, but as I went in further I noticed what Abner was obsessing over. At the cave's rear, at the bottom of a long downwards incline fashioned into what seemed like a staircase, was a cavernous tunnel, not composed of ice or rock, but of perfectly smooth metal, the likes of which I have never seen before. It stretched out further than any light could reach. There is no doubt in my mind that this is where the beast came from. I awoke to the sound of splintering wood and a thunderous crash. The wood that made up much of the hut's ceiling buckled under the weight of continued snowfall and dropped a dense wall of snow into the main room. Thankfully, Shelton, who had been sleeping there, was far enough to one side that we were easily able to dig him out. After hours of digging, we were able to form tunnels connecting with all areas of the hut. But we know that this will not work as a shelter much longer. Richard has been adamant that we use the cave, stating that it's our only chance at survival. We all wish that didn't have to be the case, but as I look at the walls around me, I fear that they will collapse a moment too soon. In a few hours' time, the 8 of us will hold a vote on our course of action. All I know is that turning back will not be an option.
Freaking A, dude. Bub. I mean, it's dangerous enough there as it is, right? Freaking, you're in the triple negatives essentially. Storms come out of nowhere and happen on a whim, it seems, and sometimes you can get almost blown off your feet. Not to mention they have like these lines that are like dug deep into the ground, and you got to try to follow that shit. And if you venture out anywhere, period, it doesn't matter if it's a clear day or not. One of the SOPs for safety and security was, all right, lead guy is going to have a bunch of these stakes on his back. Guy behind him, bunch of these stakes on his back. Guy behind him, bunch of these stakes on his back. Guy behind him, bunch of these stakes on his back. And there would be a line, right? A nice, real thick freaking rope that could be put, to each of these stakes. And every like 25, about every 25 to maximum about 30 meters that you'd go, you'd stick one of those in the ground super deep with a mallet and everything. And then put rope through it, keep walking. Not to mention, it's hard down there to walk around and shit. Just like any snow. And, even if you have snowshoes, right? Even if you got those, it's still tough. It's rough. You're burning so many calories moving through that. Not to mention you got to be careful in certain areas of like, in case you don't know it, but you're on some unstable ground. That does exist there. And in the cold places I've been, it's not too dissimilar. Except, people think northern New York, and they think like, uh, the northern states of the United States are cold. People think Alaska is cold. Antarctica is a totally different beast. So is the North Pole. But yeah, just if you were deciding, it was something else. I'll say that much. But yeah, on top of all that, not to mention when it came to shelter, like you had to construct it. You had no hope of getting any type of tents out there and them staying up. They get rolled over, folded, freaking, your regular tents, those things will snap. The poles you use for like any of your regular camping tents or whatever nowadays, those things would snap. So yeah, not to mention you'll get piled on quick. Which is why you have to construct something either just below the surface with more than enough room and make sure you don't get piled in too much and too deep. And you have to have someone constantly ensuring that there's an entrance, right? Because if you get closed off entirely, you can suffocate. That potential still exists. But yeah, just, oh, brother. Not to mention having to wear like special eye gear, like there's like because you can get like snow blindness and all that. Like, imagine going through all of that. Plus, doing this discovery shit. It's like, oh, an expedition. Oh, those were, man, you can't talk shit about the people in the past because they were just different animals to us now.
We unanimously voted to use the cave. I can tell that none of us are enthused by this, especially Sai, who is failing hiding his nervousness under an emotionless veneer. But by now, the den of a monster is more inviting than death under mounds of snow. The snowfall has stopped and we will depart in a few hours' time. So far, the tunnel has proven a good fit for our survival. The constant heat flows out of it, warming the air to the point that Richard was able to not wear any protective clothing 10 meters into it. None of this air escapes far into the cave, relegating us to an eerie darkness. I've dared not go near that pit at the tunnel's end. On multiple occasions I swear I've heard clicking noises, but whenever I ask, it turns out to have only been myself. Richard has been acting strangely, a statement that seems redundant but is more true than ever before. Every couple of hours he raps 7 times on the tunnel walls, goes out for what he says are brief strolls, only to carve more esoteric symbols into the cave's ice. He seems happier than I've ever seen him. I've always thought of him to be a mystic who had largely shed his roots for a nobler, educated life. But now, as I watch him, I highly doubt this notion.
Oh no. They got into his brain. No, that sure could imagine that, man. Imagine that. You're just doing your day to day daily, and then you end up with something else inside your head. Yeah, that would. I don't know if people can imagine things well enough, right? Me, I can. It's not so much imagine as. Because imagination takes creativity. I'm not very creative at all. I'm not the artsy type. But I can. how do I put this? Feel what it would be like inside of my own skull to have something else there that's not me, that's not a part of me, that's able to reach into me and, kind of like a cordyceps parasite does to ants, puppet me, do stuff to affect me, to change me. Freakish. Doesn't even cover it.
As Abner does his best to keep morale up by roping everyone into improvised theater performances, I find myself going to the edge of the pit, away from the laughter and commotion, to sit with my own thoughts. I tossed the small religious pendant Giles left behind in there, and carefully listened for it to hit the bottom. A few slight tinks against the metal walls, then silence. All I heard was just my heartbeat. The light from the lamp I bring along is barely provided enough to let me see the walls of this massive structure, so I have no idea of how far down it goes. Occasionally, Richard will join me. He silently walks in and sits a bit farther behind me, gazing off into nothing. We've never exchanged a single word here. To us, it's a sacred place to be alone with our thoughts, and I dare not disturb that peace for anyone. He's far braver than I am, and turning off his lamp whenever he arrives, though. I always pointlessly fear that at some point, that shadows will pull me away, leaving the rest of the crew on their own, and this lamp is my safeguard against it. Or perhaps I worry that in darkness I'll stumble and fall to my death. Whatever the reason, with this light I make the things I've seen on the voyage feel less real.
Makes sense. Fire and light has always been a comfort to us. I mean, back in the caveman days, they'd put a fire at or at least I read somewhere that they put a fire in front of the cave. And that the actual sleep cycle we used to have, we'd have like a by, what was it? It was a by something sleep cycle. I forget the name. Bicapsulin? Whatever. Anyway, irrelevant. But we had a sleep schedule that was designed around the fire going out, essentially. That was my understanding of it. And because the fire at the entrance of the cave is what kept all the monsters from the night away. And so to this day we still enjoy a good fire. It's comfort and light. And yes, it did keep the monsters away. But probably not these ones.
We woke up to find that Richard was gone. His sleeping bag was open, with much of his equipment left behind. Abner checked the cave and couldn't find any new marks in the snow, so he had to have still been in the tunnel. After a moment of preparation to retrieve lamps, we started going deep into the tunnel. Minutes later, I turned around to see that everyone had stopped following me several meters back. I ordered them to come forward, but they simply stood there, doing nothing. I decided to go on without them, reaching the edge of the abyss after what felt like hours. I reached the edge, solely hearing the rattling of my lamp and the quickening of my heartbeat. All that I could find was Richard's boots and a single lit lamp. I looked about, all over, hoping I would see him elsewhere in the darkness. But he was nowhere. He'd fallen in. I cursed the heavens and stomped the ground, kicked his lamp with a great swing of the foot, and watched its light tumble down till it vanished. When I came out, I told the crew he'd left without a trace.
Yeah. It's tough to be in that position. It's a love-hate relationship to be supervising anybody, to be in charge of stuff, to have that responsibility. It's tough. That's why I did things pretty lazily. So I could go and do more shit I wanted to do. I made everybody, that was ever under me much more capable. And I delegated a lot, so I had more time. I mean, it helped everybody, but at the same time, I try to do the least amount myself without sacrificing, without sacrificing my duty, obligation, and commitment to the NCO's creed. But at the same time, it was like, yeah, I kind of want to go home earlier. So let's make sure everybody's able to get everything done. And then we don't have to do much. But anyway, let's continue. It's tough to be in that position.
Eventually, I came to ask why they had stopped following me, despite my clear orders. Quietly, when no one else would speak, Palmer told me that they had begun fearing for their own lives. They saw one of the beasts clinging to the ceiling directly above me. I can't return to the pit anymore. I look down there and swear I see the flickering of light. I look up the walls and swear I see shifting symbols and shapes. And when I close my eyes and look nowhere, I still see something. A ring, a halo suspended in the colorless region under my eyelids. The last time I went today, I started hearing that godforsaken noise, that clicking of the beasts. I peered past the edge, and my lamp snuffed out, whether by my negligence to check the fuel, or something else. I stood there for moments, paralyzed, and I came to a terrible realization. Every time I had been here, the only sound to keep me company would be my heartbeat and interspersed gaseous noises from the lamp. That sound was not my heartbeat. I spun around right as the voices grew from faint whispers to murmurs, and I ran, dropping the lamp and only stopping when I seen the lights of my crew. Tomorrow I will inform the crew of a new rule. Nobody is allowed further than 10 meters away from the tunnel entrance. That hole can only lead to further woes.
Bernard, 4431, Excerpts 2.
When I returned from outside and reached the stairwell, I saw the crew outside the tunnel, pressing themselves up against the cavern walls to either side of the entrance. I was about to ask what was happening when Palmer signaled me to be quiet and moved to the far wall. The crew isn't idiotic, so I knew they had a good reason for this, and I quickly followed his command. Silence at first, then scraping, then clicking. I went behind a pillar of ice and peered out to see 3 beasts climb up the staircase. 2 left the cavern while one with massive bulges on its body froze in place. One of the bulges cracked and it shattered, dropping a black sphere. The beast then left to join its companions. Once I knew they were gone, I went to inspect the sphere they left, which had a crude stick figure of a human on it. I tapped it with my foot and it split in half, revealing a growing mass of some sort of pale flesh-like foam that quickly became larger than myself. Eventually it stopped growing and rested there, pulsating. I've been in the tunnel since, unwilling to interact with this thing for the time being.
Oh no, it's the thing. It's kind of funny because this thing, this SCP, is at the same place where, the other thing appeared. Isn't that quite the thing?
The foam is food. We were on one of our last cans of good meat when Sai threw his to the ground, shouted about how he was sick of it, and then ran out of the tunnel and out the staircase. We chased after him. We couldn't let what Giles did repeat, and saw his face buried in the foam, chewing like a mad animal. He pulled his head out to tell us how great it tasted, then plunged back in. None of us knew what to do at first. Shaw simply shrugged, then joined in, and over time the rest of us did too. It was the most nourishing meal I've had in ages.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That doesn't sound good. It sounds like lab-grown meat. I don't like that idea. I don't like it at all. Something inside of me rebels against it entirely. Just the idea. Just, ugh. Yuck. I mean, sure, maybe it's edible, but what other effects does it have? Anything else wrong with it? Nope, nope, I'm good. Yep, y'all don't want your rations? All right, give them to me. Give me them rations. All right, I'll take them all. You can have that. I'll keep the stuff I know. It was kind of like being. It kind of reminds me of being in South America, and we've seen all sorts of weird stuff down there. And there were these. I forget if they were part of the tribe or not. They were like these local tribes people, and there was one of them who we were out like doing a patrol and stuff, and training, of course. And what they do is that they're kind of like a local guide, and they tell us stuff that's useful, important, or whatever. We take notes. They're the subject matter expert here. We're the outsiders, treated as such. It's a learning experience, right? Well, at one point, he gets a spider, one of those big tarantula looking spiders. I forget if they're an actual tarantula or I think they're just another species of tarantula. Anyway, giant freaking spider. He gets one of them because I guess he was hungry, and he goes to the middle of the camp. He does all these preparations on it, right? He's already killed the spider, and he ends up kind of cooking it, kind of. I mean, it didn't feel like to me he cooked it long enough, but I don't know. I've never eaten a spider, so, and I don't think I ever will. Even if I'm desperate, I'll be like, no, no, thank you. Especially after one jumped on my hat. That was not fun. But yeah, no. And he proceeded to pick it apart and eat the whole thing. Right? I think except for the fangs. And I was like, oh, God, I can't be here. Something about it just, ugh. Ugh. I get an involuntary kind of gag response almost. It's just, ugh. No thanks. I'll take my chances fighting the jaguar, okay? I'll take my chances with that. Or a python, a big giant snake, or an anaconda. I'll take any one of those. Hell, give me a crocodile. Crocodile's actually pretty good. We caught one while we were down there. We almost got in trouble for it because they were like, don't touch the wildlife. And, all of us were like, oh, well, they're not here now, so let's get them, boys. We trapped one, fished it right out of the river. And then it was kind of a clunky mess trying to dress it and prepare it, just figuring out how to tear it apart. But yeah, and then we ended up cooking most of it and eating it, and it was good. It was pretty freaking good. Right, raw by itself. Plus, I had like a shit ton of because in the MREs and stuff, there's also like salt packets and all sorts of condiments and stuff, and I get like a little pouch, like a little Ziploc bag. And I gather them up from everybody just in case you need them. You never know, right? You never know if it'll be life or death important. Dump it all in there with matches and everything in case you need like some kind of sulfur or whatever. And, or in case you need to light a fire. But yeah, and put all that together, and we got a whole freaking bag full of like salt, pepper, and, all sorts of other sauces and good stuff. And we used that on it, and it was good. It was damn good. Especially after a straight week of just running around in the jungle, just, carrying like, each of us weighed at least like 400 pounds with all of our gear combined. Just, and plus it's all muggy and just, God, man. But anyway, yeah, no, just like, that though, I can understand eating. Okay. It's made of meat. It's natural. It's organic. It comes from nature. It ain't whatever the hell that is. No, I will not eat the bugs and live in the pod. Absolutely not. And I'm not going to eat your lab-grown meat. F you.
Pay the beasts far less mind now. We will still go quiet when 3 or more of them march past us in the tunnel, but they have harmed us not. Not even a single voice has been heard. Every 2 days, a new food sphere is dropped, even with the other ones being far from replenished. Outside, the beasts continually drop strange objects and apparatuses until they melt into the snow, at which point a new group emerges to repeat the process. Palmer, Abner, and I have tried to understand what these devices do, but their nearly monolithic designs elude us. The twilight continues to haunt us. Certainly it will always be the case until the daylight months return, but Antarctica has come to feel less treacherous. I will continue to keep my guard, though. For the sake of my crew, I won't allow us to be caught when we are vulnerable.
Very good, man. Don't get complacent just because everything's become familiar. That's the thing, is that if you take a big group of humans and you put them anywhere on the planet, they're going to survive for a time. Things are going to become familiar over time. We're very highly adaptable creatures, barring any individual differences, really. I mean, shoot, the U.S. military does this shit all the time. They'll put you in some kind of training. They'll drop you in the middle of literally nowhere. Right? Nowhere to you, somewhere to them. They know where you are, or might be. Kind of, possibly, maybe. I mean, back in the day, it was kind of sketchy when GPS wasn't widely available. There were no smartphones, and, you had a radio just in case. But if you were lost far enough away from everything, you had a low chance of being found. So there's that. But yeah, back in the day, training was just like, all right, buddy, you got all your shit we told you to pack. You got your TM, your FM, training manual, field manual. Got your map, compass, protractor, pens, pencils, grease pencils, and all that. You got your emergency kits and all them shits, rations enough to survive on. All right, now go survive. Good luck. They just kick you out of the bird. Don't know where you are? All right, figure it out. Right there. I mean, you could train in familiar terrain as much as you want. There's nothing like going out somewhere you know nothing about, nowhere, nothing, when, how, or why, and then just being told, all right, figure it out. Good luck. Well, we'll come check on you in like 2 weeks. Oh yeah, in case you're, in trouble, just light a fire or send up a flare or something, and then just sit there. Just thinking about it back in the day now, it's it's a trip. Good times though, good times. Fun times too. Except for that one guy that died during training because nobody was able to find him, and he got horrendously sick. He got bit by something, and then he wasn't able to get anywhere within. I think he had like 3 days to live after being bitten by whatever it was. I don't remember exactly what it was. Was it? It was either a spider or a snake. It was one of the two. But there was a guy that died. And when they found him, though, tragically enough, because it took them like almost a full week of just every day, the whole, all the local units and everything, search and rescue and everything, trying to find him. Tragically enough, he had died within just about only 10 clicks radius of the start point. And everybody was laughing and joking when he was found to be missing, because they were like, oh man, somebody actually got lost. Damn, that sucks. We'll rib him about it when he gets back. No, turned out he was dead. Brother. Well, anyway, apologies. Ranty, ravey, old veteran here. I'll try to stop doing as much of that.
Something impossible happened last night, prior to me falling asleep, so I write this the following day. We heard the familiar clanging noises of the beasts as a new group was nearing the tunnel exit. but there was a difference. I have grown accustomed to hearing the rhythmic noises they make when moving across metal, so when I heard an entirely different set of sounds, I was disturbed. Coming out of the tunnel, flanked on both sides by two beasts, was something only vaguely human. It moved on mechanical legs, 6 many-jointed silver arms, dangling, the 7th arm emerging from its chest pointed forward. The torso was hidden under a tattered blood-stained coat, and a mask of ice that refused to melt obscured its face. The creature shambled over to me and spoke in a voice like faulty typewriters, introducing itself as Richard Parrish. By that point I was certain I was dreaming, so I welcomed him back and then fell asleep. When I woke up in the morning, I was not prepared to see him truly exist.
What? Just actual fucking what? So, oh, I wonder how that happened. It took him, that's for sure. Did something to him. Was it trying to preserve life? Or is he just a puppeted, like, or is he just a corpse that's been, like, biomechanically repaired? If you know what I mean. As in, I'm Richard Parrish, but I'm not the Richard Parrish that has a soul, Richard Parrish. Oh, God, how would that work? Oh, that's a bit disturbing. That is a bit, brother. That's a bit somewhere out there. Uh, but yeah, and faulty typewriters. Oh, kind of like, oh, I know what they mean by that description. Um, it's like that old school, like robot speak, right? Where it's like, with clickety sounds and everything. That's what it sounds like. Bob. Imagine if he fell in, it tried to save him, and it just failed, but didn't understand that it didn't save him, and it just resuscitated a corpse and biomechanically like put it together. Oh, God, have mercy. Not a true cyborg, because you're supposed to be still animated by a soul if you become a cyborg, as a core of you being human. But I guess not. Or did it take him because it decided you're going to be my little servant helper now or something? Dude.
I'd be lying if I said that none of us were in shock at Richard's return. He acts as though he never left, only alluding to changes when he calls himself an ambassador for man. Whenever I ask about what happened to him in the pit, he becomes silent, only talking again when the conversation shifts to a different topic. Never has he taken off the mask, saying it's best it stays on. His behavior has also become even more peculiar. He accompanies the beasts when they leave to drop their devices. Then he uses his arms to open the machines and apparently inspect them. He continues to do the 7 knocks on metal ritual, but now it's accompanied by his own clicking sounds. I am certain that the objects he carves with his symbols now glow in the darkness. It is faint, but I know it's there. When nothing else is happening, he'll ramble about nonsensical subjects. All I can understand are sentences about how everyone should be bleeding. I can't trust him. I mustn't.
Well, that ain't good. I don't know what else to say about that. That ain't good. So yeah, it basically made him its puppet, which from what it sounds like, he was already its puppet before it took him and then remade him as a better puppet. Um Huh. Kind of sounds like the Borg in a way. Kinda. Huh. Sounds kind of like the Borg, but hmm. I mean, in another way, he kind of sounds like a tech priest. I mean, they're just as strange. From Warhammer 40k, like one of the followers of the Omnissiah, of the Machine God, the Mechanicus. He also sounds like he could be that too. Freaking Mechanicus existing before the Imperium of Man confirmed.
Darkness. It is faint, but I know it's there. When nothing else is happening, he'll ramble about nonsensical subjects. All I can understand are sentences about how everyone should be bleeding. I can't trust him. I mustn't. In the afternoon, or at least what felt like it, I assembled Abner and Palmer for what I told the crew was a survey of the outside to find the best route for the expedition. In reality, we went to check the devices. Richard was returning to the tunnel when we left, so we knew that not a soul would see us. The target of our investigation was a cubic machine. It had an array of limbs that stabbed the snow and pumped a brown fluid into it, staining the area. The three of us tried to pull a limb out of the ground, and then tried to hoist the entire object, but we found that it was firmly stuck in place. Abner spotted a panel on one side and opened it, exposing some sort of spherical contraption surrounded by wires on the inside. Messing with the interior of a potentially dangerous mechanism was a terrible idea, so we started digging up the snow around it. The ice was wholly being replaced by some form of pale purple dirt, blue plant things sprouting in it. Palmer rushed over to a near-identical object, dug around and found more purple dirt and blue plants. For an hour we watched the ice transmute into dirt and sprout plants like nothing I've heard of. Even small slug-like creatures began to take form from fluids in the soil. We returned to the tunnel an hour later.
Sounds like it's trying to terraform. What would be interesting is if this is at some point linked back to, because in South America, especially around like the Amazon and the old Inca, Maya, and all those other empires, like former stomping grounds, the soil there is incredible. You could take the limb from something, chop it off, stick it deep into that dirt, and it'll be growing wildly just within a week. How do I know? I tried that. It worked. I was like, what the fuck? Never saw that happen before very easily. Right. But yeah, and the ground there is so fertile. It's so good. And there's this layer that's called something like what's it called? It's called like it's not terra firma. It's is it damn it. It's something that means basically like rich earth or fertile earth. I keep forgetting what exactly the name of it is. But it's the soil down there that's so incredibly good and fertile. And they don't know how it was done, but they know that it was artificially made. It was done artificially somehow, and we can't replicate the process. Wouldn't it be crazy if something like, this SCP thing would be linked back to that? At one point in time, Antarctica and South America were, well, connected on the same continent. It's not so supremely insane or crazy to me, even in real life, as a some kind of hypothesis. I could easily realistically see that happening. And it's crazy that that's actually potentially real. 3i Atlas, are you coming here to. Are you coming to Earth? You going to terraform us? Or are you going to help us become more terraformed? Or terraform something for whatever masters you serve? 3i Atlas, can you feel my brain waves? If you don't know much about 3i Atlas, just look it up. It's a third interstellar object spotted by the Atlas Observatory. First, thus it was named 3i Atlas. It's the third interstellar object we've detected since we've been able to do deep detection and long distance detection. Yeah, things are getting pretty wild and crazy as the years go on. I never thought we'd have the potential of, all this stuff culminating. But anyway, here we are. May you live in interesting times. I did not know if that was a curse or a blessing, and I'm not sure still.
Recently, Sai has taken an interest in Richard's nonsense. He'll sit by him, listening to every word he says like a student with their teacher. I swear I've seen him take notes on a scrap of paper once. Today, when Richard started the knocking, he joined in, and now they are repeating the same chants as I write. I haven't seen him scared at the sight of a beast since. Sai may be the youngest, but he isn't idiotic. That much I know. If he is willing to listen and follow along with the occult, then there must be a reason for it. What such a reason could be escapes me.
They got his brain. Run!
I was returning from a brief look outside when Richard approached me, telling me that he had questions. He led me to a section of the cave away from the tunnel and asked me why Palmer, Abner, and I keep leaving to inspect the machines. He saw us. I said I was only interested in what they were doing, in as calm of a manner as I could muster. Like a faulty record, he started asking if I meant harm incessantly. I kept responding with no, but as he asked, I began doubting how true my answer was. He abruptly paused, placed a hand on my shoulder, and asked if I realized the importance the beasts held. I was so out of my wits that I was silent. He said that if I was interested in the machines, I should be joining him in his rituals. He claimed that it would be an enlightening experience for everyone, and a path with more opportunities than heading for the South Pole. I nearly lost my nerve, and shouted about how far we had come since we departed, and how renowned we would be upon returning. He sighed, said that it was pointless to be in the shadow of Amundsen when there was a higher purpose below, then left for the tunnel.
And they even reference Amundsen, Roald Amundsen, a prolific explorer in this. Dude, they do such a good job with this shit. I love these stories. I wish I could get them in book form, because then I could, read them and stuff. I like physical books. I don't like digital books that much. For some reason, it's not as satisfying to read a digital book or to hear an audiobook as it is to actually have a physical book in my hand, to turn those pages, right? And to hold it. It's not the same. It's nowhere close to the same. But yeah, freaking dude, this is good. I'd love this as a book. As like a book, like an SCP book, that'd be great. But yeah, and then it sounds like, well, here's the thing, right? Is that if something's alien to you, but it invites you into its way of existing, I mean, to us, it could be something different. What if there's something that's technically dead, like a prion, but it's an alien creature that is animate, and it invites you to assimilate to be one of it? Do you die? Or let's go even somewhere else where it transforms you like it did to, what's his name? Parrish. And it changes you to suit it. Maybe you already have to be susceptible? Who knows?
Whether by our
Give me a second. I need to let the dog out. Never mind. I had to do a lot more than take the dog out. I had to fight off the thing from another thing from another thing that did a thing. And it tried to do that thing to me. And I didn't allow it to. And now that thing is angry about me being a thing and it not being able to affect me like a thing would. So that being said, yeah, let's continue. I'll just leave that there.
Digging that exposed the dirt, or by the whims of the machines, the dirt has replaced at least half an acre. The plants have become spore-spewing pillars, and the slugs as large as my feet, occasionally dividing like cells or inflating into zeppelin creatures that fly to the horizon and out of sight. The other machines seem to be helping the growth, releasing dirt-making fluid and foam for the animals. The beasts simply perform inspections and leave devices farther out into the tundra. It is reassuring that the expansion seems to have slowed down, but the amount of life here is constantly increasing.
That sounds like... You know what? That sounds like it could be handy. So let's say I'm not a rocket scientist. I never will be. Although maybe I'll make it another degree. I don't know. I've got so many degrees now, and they're all useless for anything but fucking being paperweights. Well, they're weights made of paper. Well, whatever. But it all amounts to nothing if nobody wants to actually hire people because they all want to save money and make more at the top. Fuck them all. That being said, where's Luigi when you need him? Oh, shit. I said that, didn't I? Anyway. This sounds like it'd be something useful. It would be something I would plan for, right? Let's say I was given charge of like some kind of recon on like another planet. I know that the timetables for getting there and back are long. Even if it's the next closest planet. You're looking anywhere from, depending on what speed you're doing and what things you gotta, plan for on top of that. The alignment of shit as well. When you look into it, there's so much to it. There's so much to it. But that being said, right, and also navigation, right, because you're not going to just be outside Earth's atmosphere and immediately see the planet. Yeah, crazy, right? You don't just get out of Earth's atmosphere and see anything outside of the moon and the sun. The distances between stuff is so... It's literally why they say astronomical. Because you're not going to clearly see it from where you are. So, as there's navigation in space you have to deal with as well. And you would have to plan for and account for those kind of factors when you do a risk matrix for such a mission. But let's say I was given charge of a recon of a planet, right? And it was going to be, I'll say Mars because it's a pretty safe bet. Well, the first thing I got to do is gather all the information I can on what we know about Mars currently. Granted, you can trust NASA worth of shit because of all the shit they've done. They've lied a lot. They've done a shit ton of lying. It's amazing anyone trusts anything they say anymore. And that's why stuff like flat earth and all the other stuff that goes against, establishment science has grown in popularity. Because establishment science has become a religious dogma that lies as much to itself as it does those it's supposed to serve. And is now as equally applicable in people's minds as flat earth, dinosaurs not existing, and creationism. Congratulations, science. You screwed yourself by being absolute idiots with it. But anyway, that all being aside, my personal gripes. When you look into this, right, you gotta get all the information you need. And so to figure out what can be done there realistically, or what do we think can be done there, and you got to plan for, prepare. The logistics would be insane. Actually, I think I could do a lot with I think I can do a lot with 1,000 tons max payload capacity. I think I could do a lot with that because a ton of that, like I would section off 1 ton for, preparatory kits of some kind that I would have to plan for and put those together as well. And I'd have to get a hold of subject matter experts like, geologists, horticulturalists, people that are, subject matter experts in agriculture, um, and all them things. And what I'd do is I would get together a full 1 ton kit of being able to terraform. Because I would plan on being there for a while. And so what you would do is you would find out what plants are the hardiest that are edible, right? What plants would have an easier time adapting to any environment. Depending on what the answer comes out, those are the things you're going to pack and prepare for and get all the stuff to start with, right? Um, and so I would immediately think, okay, long-term preparation to, start making our own sustenance, right? That would be our sustainment there. Um, I would say about, let's see, average calories would be about, for your average soldier, the average caloric burn for training is it's about 2,500 calories a day during training. Roughly 2.5 MREs plus hot chow. Actually, that'd be perfect. MREs would be perfect because they don't require fire or flame. Um, and they're the vacuum wrapped ones, like the Ranger MREs meal kits. Those would be excellent. Excellent. Get like 10 tons of those easily. 10 tons of that, you're sustained for a couple years. So that would easily do it. And then on top of that, I would have at least 2 tons set aside for some kind of emergency kits. And that's planning for every possible emergency contingency you can think of, including environmental factors outside of direct control. You can't control the environment, but you can control you. So you focus on what you can do to you versus the effects of the environment on you. So that's what else I would have to plan for. Um, Also, another consideration would be, suits. We'd need extra suits. I know that for a fact. I've torn up, clothing a lot. I've torn up armor. Yes, it's possible. I've ripped through a few, back when we still had them, flak vests. And then LBs, the load bearing equipment belts. I've ripped through a few of those. I've broken a couple rucksacks, the Alice Pack ones as well. I've torn up all sorts of equipment just wearing it and then doing training. So if I imagine it to be that at least as load intensive of when it comes to physical exertion, rigorous activity, and all that, which is what I would plan for. Always plan for the worst case scenario first. Anything below that is a godsend. But yeah, so I would have to set aside some tonnage for extra suits, to be able to be able to keep to sustain operations, right? Or at least spare parts for them if they're more modular. Then that would be useful. But just in case, full suits. in case of catastrophic failures of a suit or something. But yeah, of course, that would come with equipment. And then we would need some kind of self sustaining vehicles. So, like Mars rovers that are, if they're solar powered, then yeah, they'll be good. Um, and then we would need something to produce water because you can only carry so much, and fresh water is not something that lasts very long. So you need to figure out a way to produce water on site. I forget what the mechanism is to do that because you can produce water without having to have a water source nearby. It's just complicated. That's all it is. And then there's no way in hell I'm going into space to a place where there may be other things besides me and not having any weapons. Trouble is, how would we would need something that was because like firearms, they work a lot better in atmosphere than they do outside of it. I'll just say that much. So you would need something that isn't dependent upon combustion. Damn it, but air would take up a lot too. Because if you used air based weaponry, right, which is compressed air, think like airsoft, or paintball, stuff like that. Then again, a bow and an arrow will basically work everywhere. Maybe we just take crossbows or something similar. I'm sure they could. I'm sure they could engineer a solution to that. But I would want to have something that makes it possible to effect countermeasures in case we encounter something other than us and we just were never told about it. I'd want something like that. And then, of course, morale, health, and welfare. So I'd put a few tons aside for like communications equipment. And I would want something with at least some kind of triple redundancy and encryption capability so that we could, you know, we could have the in the chance that, open broadcasting is a bad idea, letting people know what exactly is going on without them having to, well, anyway, because you want to have considerations for other humans as well. So, encrypted communication, plus we would need a few tons of it, and we want it to have redundancies. So battery powered, they'd have to be big batteries. Oh shit! But they would have to be able to be charged, which you can do with solar. But also, you want the option to where you can hand crank charge them, right? If you have a hand crank capable of at least 10 times order of magnitude multiplication of force, when it comes to generation, right? So if you spin it, you produce, and you start the movement. All right, I'm getting way too complicated with this. Anyway, that's basically like what I would be going through if I was told to go somewhere else. Something like what seems like these things are doing, sorry about the rant, would be very handy because it sounds like you could just put a ton aside of whatever this is that they're capable of. But yeah. Or what I would love to do is that I would like to take like at least a ton of, or a couple tons, You're speaking. It's at least 1,000 tons, something like that, that can be launched into space. So take a few tons of the fertile soil from the Amazon, and then take that to Mars. It could be a double experiment and an exploration into long term sustainment, and see if it works that way. But anyway, sorry, I got off on way tangent there. Let's keep going.
It's as if every time I turn to look, some new type of slug or plant has been born. The situation at the tunnel seems to be equally deteriorating. Sai isn't alone. Sure, Shelton and Esben are all involved in hourly rituals. They barely notice when I call out to them, more intent on every move Richard makes, and his talk of impossible stars, bleeding gods, and world-sized corpses. The only one to pay me any mind is Esben. Initially, I was afraid by how nonsensical Richard seemed to be. Now I'm afraid that the nonsense is true. I'm not one to keep logs of dreams, but this one has happened so often and is recalled so clearly that I must write it down. It starts with 7 points of light in darkness. 1 point cracks and bleeds pink liquid, which coalesce into a thin glowing ring. Then there is a planet, the details of which are just fun.
Wait a minute. I feel like I missed something there. Uh-oh. The cult is spreading. The Borg got them.
Less into a thin glowing ring. Then there is a planet, the details of which are just fuzz. The ring emerges on the planet and stays until the planet cracks. A second planet, covered in what I think are green oceans, appears, and the ring emerges again. Something made of flesh rises on it, and the planet vanishes, replaced by another covered in purple soil, with the pink ring on it. A hole opens, and the ring appears above Antarctica. A week ago when I heard the voice, I didn't know why it said home. Surely the home of such a monstrosity would be long ways off from here, down in the underworld where it belongs. It had to have been confused. Now I realize demons are far too human for what these are. I woke up last night while everyone was sleeping after feeling something rub against my back. Standing overhead was Richard, reading my journal and dripping the damn pink blood out of his mask as he did so. He'd reached behind my back, into my sleeping bag, and pulled it out. I tried to stay as still as possible, provide an illusion of slumber. Minutes that felt like years passed, and he dropped the journal in front of me, stepping over me and walking deeper into the tunnel. Once I was sure he'd left, I reached to pull my journal back to safety, when a metal hand slammed down onto mine. I was dragged out of my bed. I've forgotten the rest. It isn't safe here anymore. I won't write until it is.
Bernard, 4431, excerpts 3.
Uh-oh. Seems like things are coming to a head. With the things that seem to have no head. And one of them seems dead.
Earlier today, I woke Abner and Palmer to tell them about last night's events. There was no doubt we had to move. Everyone else was sleeping, and I had seen Richard go deep into the tunnel with 2 beasts, so we quietly packed whatever supplies we could. Palmer accidentally woke Esben, who we told would be departing to survey the land. Though Esben was luckily sane, he pleaded to come with us, saying that the rituals Richard started seemed entertaining at first, but are now incredibly disturbing. Although I am wary I brought him along, more hands on deck is always better. Our trek outside was uneventful. Though the ecosystem the beasts have been creating with the dirt is now flourishing, the amount of plants has increased to the point where much of the purple ground is covered in strange yellows and blues.
Sounds like a world from Helldivers, honestly.
Insects would scurry out of our path, before I could get a good look at them, and the slugs, now as large as horses, were feasting on the remains of something long. We were all happy to be out of there. I am currently writing this within the hut we abandoned. I don't know how long it will stay standing. Once it does fall, I don't know where we will go. Our supplies will last us for a few days, but when they run out, I know Lewin's crew will be too far away to aid us. God help me. When we left yesterday, someone had to have been listening to our move. Through one of the windows I can see Richard, Shaw, Shelton, and Cy standing side by side in the distance. I think they are watching the hut. I told the crew we'll be staying on guard. It's an hour later. Richard, Shaw, and Cy have left for the cave. Shelton seemed to fall in the snow and vanish. I occasionally see brief movement under the snow, but it feels like my mind is playing tricks on me. An hour after my last entry, Shelton broke into the hut. I heard the shattering of glass, and I found that he had lunged through the window at Abner, trying to strangle him. I kicked him off, and the four of us got him restrained and tied up to a chair. His skin had paled since we last saw him, and a metal cylinder, warm to the touch, had been embedded in his chest. We tried to get him out to talk, but much like Richard, he went quiet and stared nowhere.
Oh no, yep, it's starting to take them all. So this is what happened to the Lost Expedition.
Esben then knelt down by the chair, whispered a sentence in the language Richard was so fond of, and he started shaking. He told us that Richard wanted to speak with me, a statement he kept repeating again and again. Either that was all his brain let him say, or he needed to keep quiet about something else. Mid-sentence, he went quiet, gurgled a bit, then his whole head started to melt and sink below the collar of his jacket. Like a heated wax statue of his whole body liquefied, and all that remained was a pool of pink blood. After much deliberation, I will head out to meet with Richard. I can see him from the window, standing at the edge of the ecosystem. If I don't return, I'll leave Abner in charge of what little remains of the expedition. He'll make it to the pole in my honor.
I totally forgot these guys were on an expedition. The rest of it's just holy shit.
I survived. When I arrived,
He survived. Great. Awesome.
the only people there were Cy and Richard. I was hoping the pink blood stains wouldn't be obvious on my clothes, but now I inspect them. It's clear they could see it. And they knew what happened. Richard made some sort of noise, a chuckle, and he said that they did not mean the world harm, that after this shaky start, it would improve. Richard's body, for lack of accurate words, unfolded. His body spasmed open and a cylindrical spire shot out of the fractured remains, growing like a deranged plant. I recoiled, with Cy taking the chance to start choking me, not noticing the axe I had brought. I'm cleaning the viscera off it as I write. Once the regrettable deed was done, it was far too late for Richard, though. The spire was thicker than his entire torso, and was growing by the second, pulling the rest of his mass and the surrounding terrain inwards with twisted metal tendrils. Every single apparatus the creatures had left behind was pulled in and incorporated into its mass, with similarly shaped protrusions forming on the sides. The last words I heard from him were, "Protect existence." His head was pulled in with a sickening crunch right after. All I could do was run. The rest of the day has been spent with the crew, watching from the camp in horror as the tower grows taller than the highest steeples. The Antarctic night is setting in, and the bright red lights are flickering along the tower's sides.
Okay, now it sounds like something kind of out of Hellraiser. Freaking hell, they covered all the genres in this one, didn't they? But goddamn, can you just imagine that? Just, someone you knew comes back, they're basically a zombie. They're a creature now that was made to suit something else's purposes. And then, it ends up, it's actually kind of hostile towards you. After buttering you up, giving you food, making sure you're okay, asks if you will harm it, and then it tries to harm you. It's like, oh.
The next 7 pages consist of drawings. It is unknown what many of the drawings represent, though several have been identified as SCP-4431-C instances, vehicles resembling those found at Martian impact crater Herschel, unknown organisms, and sketches depicting the tower previously described. The only text present is the word "spreading."
Under those unearthly lights of the flora and tower, I can spot someone entering a vehicle, almost like the tanks my military friends spoke of. Unless they are operated in unimaginable ways, these will be our best chance. First priority is halting the beasts. I won't let myself be responsible for not ending this when I had the chance. God give us strength. In the morning, the crew and I gathered any tools that could serve as weapons and our best supplies, then set out to the tower. With Cy and Shelton dead and Richard effectively gone, the only dangers would be the beasts, the creatures of the ecosystem, and sure. As we moved, the beasts levitating around the tower's exterior and adjusting its external machinery melted into a pink rain, which I hoped had rid us of one more problem.
Now it kind of sounds like it's got elements of Dead Space in it with the convergence. That's what it's called. Where like, you know, all the necromorphs like gather in that one spot, and then they all get sucked up by the pylon or whatever thingy. That's what it kind of sounds like.
Once we entered the ecosystem, much of the fauna ignored us, more interested in violently attacking each other or mating in bizarre manners. After several minutes, we finally saw the tank up close. The vehicle's main mass is a sideways egg-shaped contraption, with large treads attached on either side. Above each tread is a massive mechanical structure, reminding me of the bulky front limbs and claws of crabs. Problems emerged right as we reached it. Shaw opened the tank's hatch and stepped out, noticed us, then began shouting. Esben shouted something back before being pushed against the tank by an invisible force. Two men, each with bodies built like Richard's, but with the exact same face as Shelton, stepped around the tank's edge and babbled in more of that language before running towards us. Abner fired his rifle, but the same force made the bullets slow and drop like stones. Palmer made a similar attempt by throwing his lamp, but it was tossed far off behind them, breaking and starting a fire. When they were pressed against the side as well, I was certain I was done for, but they froze and stared at me. They were waiting for me to make a move, to have a reason to retaliate. My body was freezing, and without shelter inside the vehicle, I would perish. Panicking, I scurried around looking for anything I could use. When I found a small slug, likely only recently spawned, disregarding any rational thought, I grabbed it and threw it at one of the Shelton duplicates, who didn't so much as flinch. The slug emitted a gurgling screech.
And now it's done cloning, essentially. Man, they really stuffed a lot into this thing.
And a larger entity shambled out of the darkness, resembling one of the slugs, but standing on spindly legs. Its head split open into massive tentacles, and the Shelton was pulled into its maw. Esben and Abner fell onto the ground and rushed to open the hatch. The last Shelton pulled me toward them, folding their mouth open and releasing a long silver structure. In a stroke of luck, I still had the ice axe on me, and once I reached them, I could save myself from whatever fate awaited me. I crashed onto the ground and sprinted for the hatch, which Esben had holding open as Palmer got in. When I reached it, one of the blasted beasts suddenly emerged from the darkness, wrapping its tendrils around the door edges and grabbing onto poor Esben. He was whipped off into the darkness, screaming, until a series of metal scrapes and wet cracking sounds rang out. I shut the hatch and the area instantly warmed. In a stroke of luck, the tank's interior is designed as if its makers intended for men to operate it, with various easily accessed storage cabinets along the sides and a ladder leading to a hatch on the top.
Or something constructed to be men-like. That seems much more likely.
Abner was at a seat in the front, looking at an array of glass panels suspended by mechanical structures. Each panel glowed and presented views from outside the tank. Despite none of the panels being connected to any wall, or having any movie projector. He slowly experimented with every button and mechanism until we started moving forward, colliding into the tower. My memory of the next events is heavily broken, and trying to recall it brings on intense mental pains. Abner began ramming against the tower while pushing with the tank's claws to make it topple. And with each thud, I heard the voice of Richard. It shouted at me, telling me that I was idiotic. And with every collision, it screamed louder to call me a murderer and a killer of humanity's future.
That sounds like some kind of shit Islamics do to people. They have something in their culture called taqiyya, which is basically, allowance by God to lie, deceive, and manipulate, scheme, and be devious, and all that other sneaky bullshit. And what they'll do is that when they go to take over an area, if you are someone who has a morality and ethics that is pretty stringent, such as like take Western morality and ethics, for example, what they'll do is they'll use taqiyya. They'll take advantage of it, right? And so what they'll do is that they'll be like, all right, these people believe, there's sanctity to all human life, and, nobody should have to die for nothing if they don't want to, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, we're going to take advantage of that. They'll copy everything about your culture, but use it as a Trojan horse to force you to be assimilated by their culture, to be subsumed by it, so that they can force their culture, their ways, and force their religion upon you by way of the Trojan horse through the opened door of your, naivete is the best way to put it, right? So, this is what that sounds like to me, right? This is exactly what it sounds like, because, this is the modus operandi. Take what it is that their enemy believes in and use it to your advantage to take them over and to conquer them. Taking advantage of people's goodwill to enforce your evil will, right? So yeah, that's what this immediately reminds me of, saying like, oh, how dare you respond against my violence with violence? You are a hypocrite and you're bad because of it. And now let me to do violence against you because it's your beliefs. Basically. Freaking A. Dude, they nailed it with this.
Why do I write it in capitals? The last I remember was the voice, sobbing. The next moment I can remember is us driving away from the tower, which had just collapsed and crushed the cave. Through the panels I can now see massive gashes in the tower's exterior, flashing impossibly vibrant colors. The next several hours have been silent reminiscing. I've told Abner to drive faster, as I know this cannot be a safe object to be around. Abner beckoned the two of us over to see what was happening on the panels. The colors from the tower had grown bright enough to be like the rising sun, and the surrounding snow and rocks were being lifted into the air around it. I then witnessed a sight I cannot stop thinking about. A number of large black tendrils pushed out of the ruins of the cave and began pulling the tower into the snow. It was as if the tunnel had come to life and needed something that was in that infernal pillar. There was a violent explosion soon after. I felt the entire vehicle get lifted into the air and thrown back down, which we think has broken one of Palmer's ribs from a collision with the ladder. Looking outside now, the site where we had been is now a white inferno, illuminating the sky and creating the illusion of a sunny day. We were driving when we heard a loud, wet slam come from right outside the vehicle. I opened the hatch to look out, and lo and behold, Richard had come for a visit. His torso was little more than an amalgam of metal, pulling itself through the snow with 3 broken arms, a comet trail of pink and red blood stretching out of the crater he made in the snow. I ordered Abner to stop driving, but he kept at the wheel, not even making eye contact with me. He didn't even consider how important this was. I yelled as much as I could until the fall stopped. I went to sit by Richard as two wound-shaped mouths began babbling like a dying phonograph. I caressed its head. Never have I seen metal crumple so much beneath single presses, whispered apologies to the holes in its face, and swung my axe down, over and over. Not a word has been spoken since I returned.
Well, he gave him some mercy. But Jesus. That escalated quickly. He had to kill a guy.
I remember my departure from England, how I spoke of being able to witness grandeur none in my village would ever see. Sure enough, I have seen a world no other man will come to witness, one that puts Amundsen's kiddie sightseeing to shame. If the map this machine shows is to be believed, we are getting closer to our destination by the second. I never needed Abner to drive. Sadly, my ink has nearly run out, and my pencil's mere stubs, so my entries on what's left of the journey will be far less frequent. For the crew members who have died, I am sorry, and I do not ask that you forgive me. I will continue in your honor. I will reach this damned pole, and may God cast me out of heaven if I don't.
Notably, a ring-shaped stain of hemerosin is present on the upper left corner of this page. No further entries are present. The journal and photographs were discovered after Mobile Task Force Psi-1 located the tank vehicle of Bannard and the remaining crew in July of 2000, 11 kilometers away from the South Pole. Although the tank had retained power and heating due to its anomalous power source, one of the treads had been heavily damaged and prevented continued movement. Inside the tank was the decayed cadaver of a male human, who had expired from repeated penetrations on the body, matching those caused by an ice axe. The identity of the cadaver has not been determined. The fate of the Bannard crew is unknown. Addendum 4431-3 South Pole Incident. On 2009-2019, severe seismic activity occurred at the site of the geographic South Pole. The Amundsen-Scott South Pole Station only experienced minor damages, but its crew reported the emergence of an unknown rocky spire, 51 meters from the station. Foundation assets were scrambled to the area. Excavation of the rocky spire found that it extends for an approximate depth of 40 meters into the Antarctic plateau. However, fragments composed of its material extend for far deeper, with the lowest at a depth of 110 meters. It is considered likely that the fragments stretch to the Antarctic bedrock. The upper portion of the spire contains the remnants of a tube similar to SCP-4431-B, though at a width at which a human individual could fit inside with moderate difficulty. Broken pieces of an ice axe blade surround the tube, and a bloodied coat is embedded into the spire nearby.
Oh, so when they stopped, he must have gone back out and tried to... He must have gone back out and tried to kill the thing again or something like that. Or tried to, I don't know, I don't know. That was probably Bannard. He went out there with the ice axe, right? And he broke the blade. Okay. So he didn't die inside the tank vehicle. Someone else did. And it was probably, what's his name? Abner. Dude. Ho, 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 ho. Shit escalated real fast.
A compacted soil-like substance, designated SCP-4431-D, comprises the spire. Materials such as ice and rock that come into contact with SCP-4431-D are gradually converted into further SCP-4431-D. The means by which this is achieved are unclear, but presumed to involve alterations to the subatomic structure of contacting materials. Visual details match those of the soil described in Bannard's journal. Trace amounts of human gene sequences have been found within the compounds. The excavation of past sites of SCP-4431-A seismic activity is considered a high priority. This concludes today's lecture.
Freaking A, dude. God, that's like almost as scary as the idea of nanomachines. You know anything about nanomachines? Well, they have the potential to be super duper uber small. Even if we get good enough and precise enough and micro enough with our production and fabrication processes, you can make nanomachines that are like the size of the head of a needle, essentially, and you can make billions of them. Imagine a swarm of those just breaking you down like matter. Just swarming you, getting all over you, and then just picking you apart in seconds. That'd be terrifying. This sounds similar to that. And it is so crazy. So crazy. And lots of fun. Lots and tons of fun. Oh, God, this is a long video. No one's watching this. Well, if you do, thank you. I appreciate it. And this was fun. Why am I unsubscribed to him? I like the Volgun. That being said, SCP-4431, Bleeding Beneath Antarctica, Euclid Extraterrestrial SCP. Extra something, that's for sure. But yeah, I had fun with this one. Thank you very much, Stuka. I appreciate it. That being said, what did you think? What did y'all think? Y'all let me know in the comments down below. I'm sorry I got ranty and ravey on some things, but I'm an old veteran. I know I don't look it. Thank you. I appreciate it. I got told that today. It was nice. But yeah, you let me know in the comments down below. All right. You know what time it is. Be good. Be safe. Make your life for yourselves. Don't compromise safety and security for nobody and nothing. Death and disaster is only a second away. Do what you can today. And I'll see y'all in the next one. I am Batter7 Actual, the formerly almost veteran. Last Cat Badger, out.